Olá, amigos entusiastas do esporte motor. Hoje um dia duplamente especial. Especial porque estamos fazendo de novo uma transmissão em conjunto do GP Total com o canal História Esporte do nosso amigo irmão Marcel Pilate, nosso canal co-irmão. E isso sempre é boa notícia, porque quando nós unimos forças é sempre uma coisa grande. A primeira vez que aconteceu foi com uma entrevista com o João Ramírez e hoje você não está tendo uma miragem, você não está vendo errado. Nós estamos aqui, sim, com o Stefano Modena, diretamente da Itália, para conversar conosco, um privilégio enorme. Eu vou passar a falar em inglês, nós vamos falar em inglês e vamos disponibilizar esse vídeo com legendas em português e em inglês pelo menos, talvez italiano também, mas é um material muito precioso. Nós pedimos a vocês de casa que ajudem a divulgar, ajudem a espalhar a notícia e desde já agradeço imensamente ao Stefano Modena por ter aceitado o nosso convite. Vou passar a falar inglês a partir daqui, tendo a companhia de sempre preciosa de Lucas Giavone, diretamente de Sorocaba, de Marcel Pilate, de Curitiba, e do senhor Stefano Modena. Stefano, I must begin, I said before we start here recording, but I must repeat, it is an honor, a huge honor for all of us to have you here with us. It means really a lot, and I must express that the contacts we had before this interview only confirmed the best impressions we had about you, about your personality, about the way you are always so kind, so attentions with all of us. You didn't know us before that, and you accepted to talk to us to give this interview. And I tell you, we speak for a whole country, or at least the lovers of motorsport in Brazil. It means a lot, really. It's a privilege. It means a lot for us that you are here with us, giving us this opportunity to remember a little bit of your career, of your rich career, and it means really a lot. I'm gonna let Lucas and Marcel say those words for you before we start, and then we begin with the questions. Lucas.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I appreciate your invitation, and I'm very glad to be here. I'm sorry, I apologize because I don't speak Portuguese. I did try to learn during my career, but obviously everything that I learned I forgot. I have a lot of friends in in Brazil. I have a friend that I spoke with. I chat on the phone maybe a week ago, and he was actually very much involved in my career because he was the one that took me in Formula 3 and also took me in Formula 1 the first year. So he's living in Brazil now, and so I still have some connection with Brazil. So I'm very glad, very happy to be here with you, and let's have a chat, let's have a talk.
Hello, Stefano. It's a privilege to have you here. My English is a little bit rusty, but I will find the words to express me in a better way. Anyway, you are part of my childhood. I started to watch Formula One in very early age, 3 to 4 years old. I'm 40 years old. And it was the time you was arriving in Formula One. And so I grew up watching your races, that fantastic period we have after the end of turbo era and the beginning of the electronic era. And you was in Formula One. You shared team with a Brazilian. We will certainly talk about Maurício Gugelmin.
Yes.
And your memories about your time racing in Europe, your times in Brazil, in Jacarepaguá, in São Paulo as well, and everything you consider relevant to share with us.
Sure.
One more time saying it's a privilege. It's so nice to have you here.
Thank you.
I'm very happy to be in this room with you in this day.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Stefano, I would like to start by thanking our friend Paulo Max, who was the person that was responsible for me to having your contact. You have had a few days with him. So Paulo, thank you a lot for this chance that you gave us. You can see how much does it mean for me and for all of us here. And Stefan, I also would like to share a single memory from my childhood, just like Lucas said. While I was playing on Super Nintendo, Nigel Mansell Formula One Challenge,
Yes.
you were there. So my first memory of your name is there. So then I'm a little younger than Lucas, than Marcio as well. So I started watching Formula One while we were in Chihil.
Yes.
This is my memory. So I saw, well, the same guys from the video game are on television. So yes, you were like superheroes for me. That's
Yes.
something I would like to add.
Yeah, in fact, it's a very strange, let me say, experience, this one, because I was on a track in Vallelunga, therefore doing some work, and it was incredible the way that we connect each other. So really a fantastic story, a fantastic experience, really, also for me. So thank you very much again.
Stefano, let's begin from the beginning.
Sure.
How did motorsport got into your life? Do you have? How is your background? Do you come from a rich family or from a family from people who loves motorsport? And how did you discover motorsport? How did you discover that you were a talented driver and perhaps you could make a living of it? How did it begin in go-karts? Because let me make an introduction here. In 1991, when you did that fantastic lap in Monte Carlo and you started P2 alongside Ayrton Senna in row one, everyone was asking him about you, and he said, "I'm not surprised. He's a very talented driver. He raced against me, not against me, but he raced with me in go-karts, and he's a very gifted driver, very very talented driver. It doesn't surprise me at all." How did it begin? How did it begin for you in go-karts? How did you discover motorsport and discover that you were a very talented driver?
Well, it was thanks to my father. He was the passionate person in the family. So he was the one that had an incredible technical background, and he was like an engineer. He was not graduated, but he was like an engineer. He was building engines, building carburetors, building chassis for go-karts. So he was racing too. He was not very successful, unfortunately, but in technical area, he was incredibly knowledge, and also he had the passion for technical things. Everything that was around the car or around the bike, motorbike. It was there, study and talking every day and explaining to me so many things. So the reason why I start to racing go-kart, it was due to his passion. And I don't know if I am a talent person. That I cannot say. I'm not in a position to say yes, I have the talent or not. Certainly, the biggest part of my success is due to the fact that I had a father like that. Without him, I was not going to have this success, and especially, yeah. So this picture is very interesting because I was already quite old for go-kart at that time, and I was racing with this company called DAP, which is on the overall. And the guy behind me with the blue jacket and yellow stripe on the arms, it's called Achille Parilla, which was also the guy that Ayrton was working with at this time in Europe when he was coming here. And this was a race in Parma, very important during the winter time. I think it was maybe September, October. And those times were incredibly good because what Achille Parilla gave to me was the professionalism. So he had, to my experience, to my career, to my let me say knowledge, he also gave me the possibility to learn how to be professional in lives, so in motorsport. And this was my, I think was my last year in go-kart, but it was not last year. I mean, the period, it was the last part of my period in go-kart. So my father was very good to give me, to initialize me, to put me on a go-kart, to let me experience, to let me get a lot of experience. But then the part where I really became, let me say, knowledgeable of go-kart and knowledgeable how to handle, anything about racing, it was the period that I passed with DAP, with Achille Parilla and Angelo Parilla. In reality, at the beginning of my career in go-kart, when I won the World Championship, I actually did race with a company called Birel and Yame engine with Parilla engine. And that also was very good experience because I was very young. I was only 15 years old. And at that time, being 15 years old in go-kart was already something special. Not anymore now, but yeah, it was. That's a little bit the story. So it was really incredible how let me say, I complete my career in go-kart. Actually, it's the best period of my life. It's actually the best where I learn a lot, where I enjoy a lot. Even when I had an accident and I had to stop for 8 months, anyway, it was something that brought me a lot of experience, a lot of thought, and a lot of things. So, yeah, best period of my life. A lot of success, a lot of learning path. That was really nice. But thanks to my father again. So
And what happened in that accident?
I broke my leg. I was already. It was the first year that I drove with DAP, with Angelo and Achille, and we were racing in a very small circuit during the winter period. And I had an issue with the carburetor. The carburetor lost the basically it happened that the carburetor lost the bottom part, so the carburetor was open, no, so I could not, even when I released my throttle, the carburetor didn't close, so the engine was always running. And I went off the track, and I broke my leg, the right leg, everything was broken. So it was really a disaster. So
Very bad.
I had to stop for 8 months, and because I was operated, I went to the hospital and I spent a lot of time in the hospital. So it was quite a dramatic accident for go-kart, but it also helped me a lot to think about, because when you are very young, you don't have time. Sometimes you don't have time to think about what happened or what you should do, and and that was a period where I could, really realize so many mistakes that I made, how to handle the mistake, how to handle myself. When I got back to go kart, it was the most successful period because I had the time to to set up myself in the right way, and from there on it was really something amazing, and I think that it was due to that. I mean, it was a disaster, in all fact, it was a catastrophe, but on the other hand, I had the time to think about and to not. I never said I will stop, but it was the time where I could really digest everything that I did, and take out the good things and leave out, or maybe I became in a position where I could realize what to do good and what not to do. So yeah, it's very good.
I would like to ask
And
you a question before Marcio goes with some more details. I want to ask you something very simple,
Yeah.
because Ayrton Senna also has always said that the go-karting is a different experience from everything else in terms of motor racing. And he says near the end of his career that he wish he could go back to that kind of racing. So what makes it so special, Stefano? What makes it so special, the go-karting, in comparison to the career, the millions of dollars, and the whole world visiting that you have in Formula One and in the other categories?
For me, it's simply the fact that the go-kart is part of your body. So, so for example, my first reaction when I drove the first time a Formula 3 car, for example, to let you understand, I sit in the car, they belt myself, they belt me, and when I start the first 2-3 laps, I said, "Wow, what is this heavy thing?" And everything and uncontrollable, because you only have the steering wheel and the gear and the pedal. In go-kart, you have the go-kart with you. The go-kart is like if you have a jacket or I don't know,
It's an
something.
extension of your body.
Yes, yes. And it's like if you have a backpack on your a backpack, but this
Yes.
backpack, you can handle this backpack by putting some some stretch on your body, and you can really handle everything on that. That is the difference that that why I like so much the go-kart. Even now, if someone is inviting me to do something in go-kart, I love. If someone is inviting me to do something with cars, I say, yeah, okay, maybe, or I don't know, but normally I don't like to do it. But if someone is proposing me to do a friendly racing go-kart, I go, because it's really that is, I mean, that is what I experience in a difference with cars. So I don't know if I answer, I mean, if I answer to your question, but in fact,
perfectly.
that is and yeah.
I'm gonna ask Lucas and Marcel the opportunity to make two questions in a row, because first one is that you grew up in a very special generation of Italian drivers. There were a lot of talented drivers when you were growing up. You were from '63, and then you had Alex Caffi, you had Tarquini, Larini, Martini, Nannini. Lots of course, it's impossible to say all the names, but you were part of a great generation of Italian drivers. There were some before you, like Alboreto, Patrese,
Sure.
and there was that the Cesaris, and there was that special generation that you were part of. Did you, Larini, of course, did you race against these drivers in go-karts, and did it help you to develop as a driver, having lots of good drivers as well? Capelli, I didn't mention Capelli. All those good drivers around you and racing against them, did it help you to develop as a driver too?
So, for example, Ivan Capelli, he was racing against me. I mean, we were racing together. He was 1 year older than me, but anyway, we were racing together in some competition in go-kart. Also, Pierluigi Martini, he was racing. We were racing in go-kart together. Gabriele Tarquini was racing in a different category with the gearbox. We were racing in let me say, we call it, no gearbox go-kart. So a bit different, but no, I honestly, the experience that I got, it was not with them. I mean, although they are very good drivers, and also in go-kart they were very good. but no, the most important experience that I got from go-kart and also in my racing career in cars is when I was when we were attending European Championship or World Championship or international races like I don't know, Hong Kong or even Colombia or Philippines. So I promise you all that first of all I was not rich, so but I was lucky to have a father like that introduced me to the go kart. But then I met so many incredible drivers in go kart that they did not go in cars because of economical situation, because of but people that could really become I won't say world championship, but for sure people that could have an incredible career in cars, and those were all in go karts. Massive amount of people, really incredible. Dutch people, English people, English driver. So, yeah, of course, the Italian, in Italy, most of the time where I was racing, I also had experience with Italian drivers, of course, but they were not the one that made me growing up or increasing my experience. I could spend a couple of days to tell you story about my experience in go-kart because I did some races where I felt like a baby, in relation to other driver. They were just kidding with me during the race, and so I had so many memory and so many experience, and it's a shame that these people could not get into motorsport. I mean, not in motorsport, but I mean in cars because they were very talented, very talented.
And Stefano, you as a go kart, a driver with a go kart in the blood, like Ayrton Senna was also. It seems that you can recognize a go kart driver when they are driving Formula 3, Formula 3000, Formula 1, because of some of the characteristics they take for the rest of their lives. For example, you were always very fast in street courses. You were always very good in street courses. You were second place in Formula 3 in Monaco. You were pole position in Macau. That first race of Formula 3000 in Birmingham, you won that race too. You had a podium in Monaco. You were always very fast in street courses. Do you think that you were always a go kart driver, even when you were in cars? You had the same way to drive and to feel the car and to find the limits. Do you think you were also very good in the wet? We are going to remember some of these moments of your career, but you were always very good in street course and the wets. And do you feel that everything that could maybe remind you a little bit of the go kart behavior helped you when you were driving cars?
Absolutely yes. Absolutely yes. You are perfectly right. Uh, I was expressing myself much better in street circuits or short or small circuit instead of long and fast circuit. Definitely yes. And that is let me say, maybe the problem of having spent too much time in go kart. Because it's important go kart, but at a certain moment, if you want to do a career, you need to go out. Otherwise, you build yourself around the go kart, and then it's complicated to go in formula in cars. I mean, to be honest, for me, it was complicated to go to start to race in Formula 3. So it was really complicated. At a certain moment, I did decide to do a small category that was only in Monza. It was Formula Monza, it was called, because it was a smaller car, small power. Formula 3 for me, coming from go-kart to Formula 3, it was too much. It was too big, the gap. I couldn't handle properly. So yeah, it's definitely the way that I grew up that allowed me to be more efficient in small circuit or street circuit in relation, for example, to fast circuit like I don't know, Silverstone or Monza or these kind of places. Yeah, definitely yes, it's correct.
I can go on if you don't have a question. I have a lot here, but I want to
Yeah,
give you the chance. I can
let's
give you
talk.
the chance. May I continue?
Lucas, would you like to talk something?
No, let's continue.
All right.
Okay. Stefano, you let's go to Formula 3. You started racing with Gianpaolo Pavanello, if I'm not mistaken, in Formula 3 in '85, I suppose, and then '86 you had a quite a good season. You won 3 races, and like I said, you were second place in Monte Carlo. You were pole position in Macau. I would like to hear a little bit about Macau because Macau seems to be a real challenge, and it was a very special race circuit that had kind of two different personalities. You had to be fast on the straights and had to be quick on a very slow part of the circuit as well. And so you you said that so Formula 2 was a big gap, but certainly you got very competitive in cars as well. You were very competitive in '86, and you were amazing in Formula 3000 in '87. Your first season in '87, and you were the champion. So let's hear a little bit from you about Macau and about that point when you were finishing your career in Formula 3. You had to do the step forward to Formula 3000, which was a big gap. So Macau and this chance to go to Formula 2000, if you can remember those times, we would be very grateful.
Sure, sure. So let me be a bit more precise. So I start my career in Formula 3 with a team called Euroteam, and the owner was Gabriele Ceresina, the name. Gianpaolo Pavanello, he was the owner of another team, Formula 3 team, but I did not race with him in Formula 3. I did race with him in Formula 1
Okay.
with the first year with Eurobrun. So it is correct. In '85, we had a very struggling season because we had, I would say, so it's very interesting because the thing that happened is that this team was quite good, was quite successful. It was actually a team that he was racing with Alex Caffey the previous year. But the car was not very competitive at that time, and so I had a very rough season, but interesting anyway. I made a lot of improvement, and I acknowledge what the Formula 3 world was. 86 was much more let's say successful. I also won the European Championship that year, and so Monaco finished second, but yes, this was the car exactly. This was a Reynard, and Monaco I finished second behind Dalmas, which was a very good, great driver also. And then we went to Macau, and Macau was very funny. Was very funny because because so before to go there, we did a race in Monza with the Formula One circus. So Formula One Grand Prix was there, and we raced on Saturday, and I won the race there. And And then I went to Ayrton, and I said, Ayrton, I need to go to Macau. And he told me, Stefano, stay far from the wall. They are very hard. I said, okay, I will remember that. But apart of that, what should I do? Don't worry, go there, and it's going to be fine for you. I said, okay, fine, let's go. So I went there, and it's something like 6.5 kilometers, 7 kilometers of track. It's very, first practice, I was lost. I couldn't remember the corner anyway. Second, it was not this time, but it was funny. It was a funny way to to talk to him. But anyway, what I did, I just tried to do this most simple thing that everyone should do. I follow another driver that was very experienced there. So I just wait for him, and then whoa, I just try to follow him. And in one lap, he gave me maybe 200-300 meters, but I could see, at least I could see where he was braking, what he was doing. And then the second practice, it was like this, and then I got used to, I start to remember the corners and everything, and then it was funny because in qualify I did the pole position, and then on the return lap to the pit, I crashed the car. So I was going slow. I was going like I was going like okay, it's not too bad, I did the pole, so relax. So I went out of the trajectory and slide and boom, hit the wall. It was so hard. The car was a little bit damaged, but I could return to the pit with the rear wheel like this. No, I could return to the pit, and then in the night, so we had a day off between the qualifying and the race. We had a day off. So in the night, the steward, the technical steward, just took apart the car, took the engine, opened completely the engine, because they did not believe that I could do the pole position. So they took apart everything. They took apart the car, the fuel tank. They dismount the fuel tank to check if there was some injection of some special fuel or whatever. Anyway, they could not find anything. The problem is that the mechanics, they were so happy to do about the pole position that when the steward returned the car to them, they said, okay, we will build up tomorrow. Let's go to celebrate. And they went to celebrate. I was going back to the room and to sleep. They went to celebrate, and the day after they were drunk. So they had to rebuild the car.
They were on a hangover.
Yes, they went to rebuild the car on a Saturday before the morning of it. So in the morning warm-up, 8:30 in the morning, 9 o'clock in the morning, I went out from the pit, and I had the steering wheel that was like this. It was bent. So imagine 9:15, the steering wheel was like this. So the car was straight, but the steering wheel
very accurate.
So I tell you, I remember in the afternoon when we did the alignment, the guy that he was inside the car holding the steering wheel, he was sleeping. He was sleeping. So I got there and I said, how come you sleep? Oh, sorry, Stefano. Yeah, but So anyway, so I did one lap in the warm-up. I stopped. I was very upset. It was a complete disaster. I was really disappointed about that. And then, of course, I was very stressed. And then I made a few mistakes on the start and like this. But because really, I was, how can I say? I was disappointed about that. Very disappointed. So I did not expect, and I understand their needs of having some fun in the night in Macau, but we were there to race. So for me, it was a disaster. For me, it was a disaster. Anyway, that was a little bit of the story in Macau, and it was funny. It was a funny story. So a funny experience, because then the year after they invite me again, and I race also there, and I was second in qualify, but because I did not use the new tires, and that was a mistake, because the day after, for the second qualify, there was a storm, a windstorm, so we could not drive because there was trees in the middle of the track, and it was a disaster. So I start second. I spent maybe half a race in third position, and then a plastic bag went into the air aspiration. So I had to stop because the plastic bag was blocking the air to go into the engine. So, but due to the fact that there was a lot of wind, and but anyway, yeah, it was quite. Listen, it was, for me, Asia. It's a very particular area, because I went in Hong Kong for 7 times, and for 7 times I was leading the race, and for 7 times I stopped for a technical problem. So that, and also including Macau for 2 times. So for me, it's like a bad place. I don't know, a bad luck place or something like that. But anyway, it was experience. It was a nice experience.
So, Stefano, then in 1987, you signed with Onyx, with the Lola car to do Formula 3000. I happened to be
It was a March car.
for
The car was
a
a
March.
Yeah,
Sorry. I'm
no problem.
getting,
Yeah,
I'm
no
losing
problem.
my
No problem.
memories.
Easy.
I happen to be a very close friend of Roberto Moreno. He
Yes,
invited me to write his biography, so I had to study a lot that period of Formula 3000. And
yes,
and you were doing your first season in Formula 3000. It was not usual to start and be competitive as soon as you were. The first race was in Jerez, if I'm not mistaken, and Johnny Herbert won. The second race, you won. You won the second race you did in Formula 3000. You won, and you were competitive from the beginning. You had a very strong competition back then, and especially with routes from Roberto and Mauricio Gugelmin. It was a very hard season, and we were very competitive. And I remember, I'm going to share you something. I remember when I was writing about Birmingham, and Roberto did that magnificent race. He had a problem in the grid. He started from pit lane, and he came overtaking everyone, and he finished second, and you won that race. And I remember I asked him, Roberto, do you think that if you had maybe some 5, 6 laps more, you could perhaps catch Stefano? And I'll never forget what he said. He said no. Stefano was getting very strong that season. At the end of the season, he was very strong. I'm sure he had the pace. If I had to push and to try to catch him, he would push also. And I'm sure he had reserves. He could drive faster if he needed to. So I'll never forget that, because he overtook everyone in that race. He did a magnificent, one of the best races of his life, and he was quite adamant that you had reserves and you could push if he tried to catch you. He was sure that you had reserves, and that shows Ayrton Senna lots of times, just like the way he told you, go there, you're going to be fine. He trusted you very much, and Roberto the same thing. He always showed a lot of respect for you. He said always that you were getting stronger and stronger through the year, through the season, and you were very strong at the end of that year. And he was quite humble, and he said to me, "I don't think so. I don't think I could catch him. He had the pace. If he needed, he would have the pace."
So next time that you see Roberto, first of all, say hello from my part to him, and but you also have to tell him that he should push until the last lap, because in that race, believe it or not, at around about 15 lap to the end, I lost the fourth gear. and I could only go from third to fifth, and the fourth gear was done. So I finished, in reality, I finished with 4 gears. So he could have pushed more, and maybe he could have catch me, because I mean, he actually, you're right. I mean, he did a fantastic race there. He actually really did a very good race. It is also true that I was very competitive in that race, but you should tell him, until the last moment, until the last lap, he should have pushed that, because he could have.
Marcio, take note. You have to add some information in the text.
Yes, I'm gonna put that in the book. The book is finished, but it's not published yet. I'm gonna include that information, because really, I never heard that before. And you were so quick throughout the race that no one has could see from outside that you had a problem, because you were always.
No, but in fact, yeah, it's true. Nobody could see that, but at a certain moment from the pit, they understood, because normally my lap time was always improving every lap during the race. Now maybe also 1/10, but always. And at a certain moment, they realized that in a couple of laps, I lost a lot of time, and so they knew that there was something wrong. They did not know that it was a gearbox, but it was a gearbox. Anyway, it's done. Okay, but you should tell to Roberto that also in my head there is always this point. So I will never back off from the speed or from the race until the last moment, because something could happen always, So I understand and I appreciate what he says. It's true, I was very competitive there, like he was very competitive, for example, in Silverstone with Ralt. They had fantastic drivers and car. Himself and Mauricio, they were very good drivers and very competitive. But again, I was lucky. I was racing in a good team. The car was quite fine in some places, so I could win Vallelunga, I could win Birmingham. So it was good. I made a lot of mistakes during the year. In Spa, I lost the race, and also the last race I was not very good because of rain and dry, and it was a catastrophe also. But anyway, I won the championship. I was lucky. And I was lucky because I think that in that 87 championship, on top of the fact that there was Mauricio Gugelmin and Roberto Moreno with Rolt, with the cars, there was also other driver really very competitive. Yannick Dalmas with the Marlboro car from Oreca, and Luis Perez Sala. This is I think it's Birmingham. Yes, I think it's Birmingham. Yes, correct. And it was really a very tough season, but this is how it should be. It's like this. Races are like this.
Yeah, you won again. You won again in Imola, and I think that was the
so in
decisive race.
In Imola, it was very interesting because with Roberto, I wasn't very good in qualify. I was something like 6th in qualify, something like this. But then we find out the problem during the night of the Saturday, and on the Sunday morning during pre-qualify. No, sorry, not pre-qualify. During free practice warm up. The car was amazing, was very good. So I started very good. I overtook everything. I overtook Roberto, which I think he actually let me go, because he was a very intelligent guy. So to be honest, I think in that race he thought, let him go and let's see where he's going, and let's try to save the car maybe for the end. And then he, by mistake, he hit a curb and he bent his suspension. So then he couldn't catch me anymore. So this kind of things can happen in a race. And but also there they were him and Mauricio. They were very fast. They were very fast. But you know, I won the championship because simply I was lucky. I won some races. I could manage some other to score some other points, and at the end I won by 1 point. So it's very lucky.
No,
But anyway,
you did a very good season there. And then we reached Formula One because you were invited to substitute Patrese, if I'm not
yes,
mistaken,
yes. Okay.
in Adelaide in 1987. And boy, you had a chance to drive the 4-bar turbo car, the last monster, the last race of those monster cars, and I believe it was a very hard race for you. Adelaide was a very demanding circuit, and you were with that big monster to drive. Can you remember for us the how the opportunity arose, and how was it to drive that quite
Yeah,
strong car in
yeah,
that circuit?
yeah. It was a disaster, a catastrophe as a race because it was the first time that I was driving a Formula One in a competition, in a race, and my Formula 3000 car was something like 400 horsepower, something like this, 420 maybe, and that one was 950. And the first 5 laps on the first free practice, it was something, I stopped on the pit and I said, I cannot drive this car. I cannot. Simply, I cannot. So because we did not have a lot of time, I was using Riccardo Patrese's seat. I was not arriving very well at the pedals. Yeah, this one exactly. And on Friday, I said I cannot drive. I really cannot drive. So then Bernie Eccleston, he was the owner of the team. He came to me in a pit. I was in a car, middle of the first session, and he told me, Stefano, what is the problem? I said, I don't know. I cannot drive. I cannot drive. I mean, I don't have the car in my hand. It has a hell of a lot of power, and I said, I don't know where I am. He said, okay, don't worry. I will handle. I said, okay. I said, you will handle. So he said to the engineer, take off half of the bar of the turbo. So put the bar at 2.5. I went out and I got immediately 5 seconds better in 1 lap. 5 seconds. And then
Whoa.
from there on, every lap I was an improver, just because I could drive the car. So by reducing to 2.5, the car had less power, and I could drive it. So because it was something like 950 horsepower, it was something like, when I was pressing the throttle and the car was all over the place. I was not used in such a condition. So that was the thing that made me improving a lot, get used. And then in the night we made a new seat. Saturday I was much more comfortable. I could feel more the car, everything, and I did quite well because I was 15 on the grid in qualifying. And in the warm up, it was even better because I think I'm not remember exactly if I was third or fifth in the warm up. And there again, the reason why I was much better in the warm up, it was because normally the warm up at that time they used to put a lot of fuel in the car to simulate the starting of the race. No? And with a lot of fuel, the car was much more stable. And again, the power, the ratio between the weight of the car and the power, it was reduced again. So I could drive the car. Finally, I was comfortable to drive the car. at 2.5 bar. So it means, I don't know, maybe 20, 30, 40, 50 horsepower, 100 maybe horsepower less, maybe even more. So that was the thing that allowed me to start the race confident, overtook people. It was really nice. So till 25 laps from the start, I was quite fine, and then my legs and it was dead. It was it was dead. I was dead. I was really very tired. And the reason why it happened like this is because BMW at that time was producing the engine for them. They they mandatory requested to put an extra spring of a returning spring on the turbo flyer, because they were worried about one spring. It was not enough to get close to close the turbo. So for safety reason, they wanted to put an extra, and you cannot imagine how hard, how heavy it was, this throttle pedal. Andrea De Cesaris, that he was racing with the same car, he spun 2-3 times. He had cramp on the legs. When he stopped, he was completely dead, and he was used to drive with that car. So I was not used to drive, and I had to stop. But it was an incredible experience, incredible. And I was very lucky to finally drive one of those cars, because it was an impressive, such a lot of power that I could not believe it could exist, something like that. So it was very good, very good. But everything, it happened in a few days. So I received a phone call from Marlboro, because I was sponsored by Marlboro. And then they called me and they said to me, Stefano, they want you to drive with the Brabham of Riccardo Patrese in Adelaide. And I said, but come on, guys. But I mean, yeah. Don't worry. You go there, and the only thing, he said, the only thing is that Bernie Ecclestone does not like to have Marlboro on the overall and on the helmet. So when you are there, you have to deal with him to put the sticker Marlboro. I said, I have to do that. They said, yes, because we cannot. So you do it. I said, but I mean, I'm not the sponsor. Yeah, but you do it. And it was fantastic, because imagine in his motorhome, I arrived and I said, okay, I'm Stefano, Mr. Ecclestone, hello. I said, well, as you know, I'm a Marlboro driver, so I need to put on your overall, yeah, I said, no problem, Stefano, no problem. Where is the overall? I said, just put it on, Stefano, put it on the overall. So put it on the overall. I was very enthusiastic. I said, wow. He said, yes, so fantastic. So he took the Marlboro sticker, no? He said, so this should go here, right? Yeah, no, but this maybe, wait, let's do this. So he bent small like this, and then he opened my overall. He opened like this. I said, no. I said, come on. I said, you cannot do this. Yes, you have a Marlboro sticker in your overall, but it's inside. I said, no, come on. I cannot do this. He said, okay, fine. For this time, let's put it here. A small one here. And he did the same with Andrea De Cesaris. So because he wanted the overall the same, so he said, Andrea, put on the sticker here. Okay. And that was funny, because, he was I think it is a very intelligent person, and very clever, and also, very nice to talk to him. I mean, it's the kind of guy that is pulling your leg all the time, and if you are not smart, it's really. So it was nice. It was nice experience, very nice. But that was my starting of the championship, so of the Formula One experience. Yeah.
Lucas, Marcel, I'll let you because I have lots of questions. But go on.
I have the chart of that warm-up times. I will share here in the screen. Your fifth position.
Yeah.
Berger first, Prost second, Alboreto, and then Andrea, who are sharing the team with you, and you are in P5.
That's correct. Yeah. P5. Yes.
Faster than Nelson, the champion of the year.
Faster than Ayrton.
But
Yes.
As you know, warm up is always something where people does not really push very hard, or maybe. But for me, it was very good because I never drove the car with a full tank, so they gave me this opportunity, and it was good. It was only 1/10 slower than Andrea De Cesaris, so pretty good. And the other nice thing that happened there is that since I was a Marlboro driver, and the Marlboro team was the McLaren, run by Ron Dennis. And at that time, Marlboro was supporting the young drivers with a Formula One driver and world champion too, called James Hunt. I'm sure that you heard about his name, so it's very famous. So he was always around and supporting me, giving me some information, some tips. Sometimes Stefano recommend you on the start, go slow, this and that. So after the warm-up, Ron Dennis told James Hunt to bring me to him. So I went to him, and we had a meeting with him, and he said to me, Stefano, you know that I am Marlboro and all these things, so I have to start my project with the V10 aspirated engine, Honda engine in Japan. So I thought that you could be the test driver, and to work with Honda in Japan. In the meantime, you are racing in Japan in Formula 3000. There was also a category, I don't remember the name. And so he said, I pay you, you become a McLaren driver, a third driver, let's say, and then you go there and you work with Honda to develop the engine, the 10-cylinder aspirated engine, and the car, and you have there a team with the engineer, with everything. So you will be, and in the meantime, you live there in Japan, and you are racing in a category.
Maybe Formula 2, Japan Formula 2.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. So I said, really, thank you very much. This is a fantastic proposal. But let me make you another proposal. Let's do that. You are doing the third car, and I'm racing in Formula One with you on the third car. He said, what? I said, yeah. Ron, I'm here to race. I'm not here to do just, test driving, or I want to race. I want to race in Formula One. Are you joking, Stefano, or are you serious? I said, I'm serious. And there was James Hunt beside me. He said, Stefano, come on, let's think about. Let's think about the proposal. I said, yeah, I will think about, but I can say it already to you now. It's not going to happen. And that was the end of the relationship between me and Ron Dennis. He never say hello to me anymore. He was just cut me out from his. So even at the airport we were meeting, because sometimes we were taking the same flight. It was not even look at me. It was incredible. But that hour was I wanted to race. I did not want to do the test drive or Formula 2 in Japan. But come on, it's final enough. I mean, at the end of my career, I have to say that was not a mistake. That was not a bad decision. certainly maybe I could be more intelligent and more sensible, and maybe say to him, I will think about, thank you very much, and all these things, instead of saying to him, come on, I want to race, what do you want to do with me? But finally I think that maybe probably it would be a very tough season in Japan, and but maybe that could allow me to, to get a lot of knowledge about Formula One with them, get a lot of experience, and maybe my career would be different. I don't know, but it's anyway. I don't care. I I wanted to race in Formula One and not do the test drive, so it's fine. It's okay.
And thank you for stepping up and taking this decision, because it was good for the history and for all of us as watchers.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if you look at it was, I was like this. I was a kind of, I don't know, maybe,
Straightforward.
yes, straightforward, and maybe I should have thought a little bit more about that. But anyway, the thing is that what I want to say is that a lot of the drivers that became world championship did that path. So they became test drivers, and then they grow up with a lot of experience, because when you do the test driver, you get a lot of information, and you improve yourself based on information, based on the development. And then when finally the team recognized that you are strong enough, they put you in a car, and some of them became world championship, like Mika Hakkinen, Damon Hill, all people that did that career. So not like me, that I want to just race and then my race finish very soon, very early. Anyway,
Stefano,
that's how it happened.
that race in Adelaide was the last race for Brabham during the Bernie Ecclestone era. Then
Yes, correct.
yes, was there any conversation about you joining the team for 1988? Because a little bit after
No, the team,
that race,
no,
the
no.
team closed its doors.
Yes, the team was closed, and there was no option to go ahead. So the team was closed, and what happened is that not most of the people, some of the people, like the engineer Sergio Inland, left and went to Dallara to make the car for Dallara. And then when the Brabham team was bought by this Swiss guy called Luthi, they built up the team, and at least this is what they told me. I was the first person to be called to be there to drive with them, because anyway, the experience that I had also with the mechanic in Adelaide, and also with the engineers, it was very good. I was a sort of guy that I was spending a lot of time with the team. When I raced in Formula 3000, and I went from Italy to England to live in England because the team wanted me to live there, I was in a workshop every day, talking with the mechanic, learning about the cars, learning about even the language. I was not talking very well English, so and they appreciate a lot when a driver is part of the team. And already at that first Formula One race in Adelaide, they felt that I was part of the team. So my group, my mechanic, I was taking care of them. I was talking with them. I was not only talking with the engineer. I was talking with the mechanic. I was explaining them what I want. So we worked a lot. We went to drink a beer in a night together. So it was kind of team building, no? So when they opened Brabham in '89 again, they told me, I don't know if it's true or not. They told me that immediately everybody was saying, let's take Stefano, let's bring Stefano to race with us. So
Yep,
it was very nice.
it makes sense. But before that, you had a year with
Europe,
Eurobroom, and
yes.
I would, for me, that is a very special year because it's easy to look at the numbers and say, "Oh, it was not a good year." But if we look closely at your performances, I believe it was quite amazing. And you had a lot. You did a lot with that car. It was a car designed, if I'm not mistaken, by Mario Tolentino.
Yes,
If I
Tolentino. Yes, yes,
Yes, and it was based on an Alfa Romeo. It was, even though it was a new car, it was an aged car. It was not competitive. It was a little, it was a lot tall. It was high, quite heavy also. But you did some amazing things with that car, and I'm not talking this because I'm in front of you, but I was always interested by the way you really took some performance out of that car, and were quite brilliant moments during that season. It started in Jacarepaguá, and I gotta ask you because I live close. I live in Rio de Janeiro, not exactly in the city, but in the state of Rio de Janeiro. I'm 140 kilometers from where was Jacarepaguá. It was my favorite place in the world, and unfortunately, the track is no longer there. So
yeah.
I'd like to hear from you if you like Jacarepaguá, and you did an amazing race in there. You reached the P15 before you had some problems, so you
Yes.
qualified the car, and you made an amazing first lap, and you reached P15 before you had some problems. Did you like the track, and what can you tell us about that beginning with Eurobroom with Broom and Pavanello? I'm sorry, I believed you raced with Pavanello before because it
Well,
was
no problem.
Euro.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
was
no problem.
Euro.
No problem.
Both teams were called Euro, so I thought it was Pavanello's team.
So, so about the team was very good. The people were very good. Tolentino was very good. Also, this uh, guy that I knew also before, Mino Torazzi, that is living now in Brazil. It was very good with me. Pavanello, he was also a very nice person, but the project was an old project. The engine was based basically a Ford Cosworth, and the team itself, it was like racing in a Formula 3000 team. So it was not at the level of Brabham or so. It was a small team, but they did a very good job. Anyway, we had they gave me the possibility to race a full season in Formula One. I could learn tracks. I could learn experience. Japaregawa, for example, the track I love the track. I mean, I in general, I found myself in Brazil very well. It was very nice place. And I always, although it was the first time there, I felt at home. I really felt at home. So it was very good. People were nice. People were good. So I like it, and the track. It's pity that I didn't know that it is not anymore there, but it's pity that they closed because it was the whole structure, the whole place. It was really nice. The track, the layout of the track, and also I remember the stands and all these things. It was really, really very nice and very nice experience. Very nice experience. So for me, it was fantastic. Also, the following year with Brabham, I had a fantastic pre-qualify test. Then I had some problem with the car, but really nice, really nice. I loved it. And you know, I bet if someone says that Rio de Janeiro is not a nice city, so of course it's beautiful, it's fantastic, it's the nature there. What I saw there, it's just amazing, guys, really. So yeah, fantastic, really nice.
And do you remember that first lap? Because you overtook so many people. Do you have any memories of that race?
No, I do. I think maybe the age gave me one or caused me one thing. I forgot a lot of things. So no, I don't. Honestly, I don't. I don't.
There are some episodes in '88. After that was Imola. You raced them very well in Imola as well. And there was Monte Carlo. There are some stories about Monte Carlo that I would like to hear from you if they are true or not, because it said that you overslept in the hotel, and then you came a little bit late to the circuit, and then you did not go to you had to wait the car, and you did not go there and was disqualified for that. Is there any truth in that, or just legends? What happened in Monte Carlo?
So for sure, they disqualify me because I did not stop to the skate, to the weight. This is true. During the pre-qualify in the very early morning, it was raining, and when I entered the pit, there was a red light, and I did not see that. So I passed it, and that was the reason why they disqualify me. So about arriving late, it's very strange because normally I am a very precise person, and I'm always there early than late. So although I was not sleeping in Monte Carlo, I was sleeping in Menton, which is maybe 10 kilometers far away. I remember that I took the train to arrive in Monte Carlo, but I was not late. Pretty sure that I was not late. But anyway, it
That's
was
good.
my mistake. It was my
Yeah,
mistake.
it's good to have to give the chance to clarify those things, those
Sure.
legends that come with time. Stefan, how was the life of a driver of a small team like Eurobroom? Did you travel? How was your traveling? How were you going to the circuits? Did you have any luxury, or were difficult times? How was it to travel around the world? On the hotels you checked in, and the way to get to the circuits. How was it? No helicopters. How was that?
No, very simple. First of all, I was most of the time, actually, I would say all of the time, traveling with my wife. That we are still after 40 years together. I'm also lucky there because never know. But yeah, and with Eurobroon and with also with Brabham, we were not staying in or flying in private aeroplane, or the only I would say that the only let me say occasion, or maybe the only time that I had a special treatment, it was when I was racing with Tyrrell, and that we went from Northampton to Silverstone with an helicopter because there was a lot of traffic. And the helicopter was the helicopter of Mugen, the son of Honda. He had his private helicopter, so he said to me, Stefano, instead of doing 2 hours of cars in the traffic, come with me. I offer you the trip. And we went, me and my wife, on a helicopter, and we flew down to the track. And that is the only time that I have something, let's say, particular. Otherwise, I was always going by car very early in the morning to avoid any traffic. And yeah, I mean, no, very normal, very simple. But believe me, Marcio, Eurobrunn did not have a lot of budget. Brabham, when I raced with Brabham, there was this guy Luti, a Swiss guy, very nice,
This
and
guy.
I appreciate a lot what he did for us, for Brabham, and for me too. So the first time that I met him, he said to me, Stefano, it's easy to spend money than getting money. And I said, wow, this guy. After 3 months, he was in jail. And, and we had no
Yes.
and we had no money to finish the championship. No money.
Oh.
So the car was rebuilt with the same pieces, the floor, the engine. So, guys, let's finger crossed that everything is good because we had no money. So also with Tyrrell, we had a great sponsor, Brown, but Ken Tyrrell was a very pragmatic person and very, so he always said, no, 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 no. Hotels, nice hotel, but not the top one. not the bottom one, but something in the middle for everybody in the same hotel. So no, I must admit that I think also that period was a kind of particular period. So we were coming out from the era of let me say, Clay Regazzoni, James Sand, Niki Lauda, all these people that they were going with champagne in the night, girls right and left, and we were entering in an era with Ayrton, Prost, Mansell, where we start the era where everybody has to be fit, everybody has to go sleep early. Also the team managers, they were saying no, what time are you going to sleep? So they were starting a new era in Formula One. So the era of the nightclub in the night before the race, it was gone. And it was starting the era where money, it was very difficult to get, very difficult to get sponsor. A part of Marlboro, a part of Williams that or Ferrari that they had, historically a lot of budget, but all the other teams that were running, always very careful on the budget. So it was not that. Yeah.
Stefano, I have a question, two questions actually. First of all, I'm passionate about Formula One helmets.
Yes.
I need to ask you about your definitive design of your helmet. Very simple, but very iconic. And also, I have to share one more screen that I found on eBay. That picture, you're selling your racing suit and your helmet, a Bell helmet of 1988.
Yes.
So I had to ask you about your design of your helmet and about this selling this
Yes.
precious selling items.
Yes. So I don't know if so I'm going to say something that maybe will disappoint you all. Maybe also the people that are in a chat and listening this program. So I had for a lot of years, and still now I have, big bags full of overalls, helmets, and all these things that were in the house of my wife. Of my mother, still alive. My mother, my father not anymore, but my mother is still there. So every time that I was going to her, she was saying, "Stefano, what are you doing with these things? Still here. Look at there. Huge amount of things. Stefano, come on." Take it now, but die, mama, keep it here. It's a memory. No, I cannot keep it here anymore. You have to get rid of it. You get. So at a certain moment, I start to connect with someone that to see if I could sell one of my. But it happened 2 years ago, so not very far away. And then I found that this guy, French guy, that he said, "Yeah, I'm interested in all your helmets, in all your overalls. So please, let's meet together." And so I sold him. I sold mostly everything: Formula One helmets and overall, like this one that you saw in the picture, and also the one from Brabham, the overall from Monte Carlo, the helmet of 89, 90, 91 with Jordan. I sold everything, and even at a reasonable price. But because my mother was keep telling me I cannot keep it here anymore. So now it's only maybe 2 bags still there with a lot of t-shirt, sheer shirt of the teams, few maybe 1 or 2 helmets from DTM, overall from DTM, which they are maybe not interested for the collectors. But I'm going to sell also those. It's sooner or later I'm going to find someone that is interested because it's really like that. So, and the thing that will disappoint you is that I don't know where I don't need to have in my house a collection of my helmet or my overall to remember what I did. Actually, no. Actually, I don't need that. I have a quite a good remind of what I did. So also my son and my daughter, they are not passionate about motorsport. So yeah, I mean, also the trophy. I have and I had a hell of a lot of trophy. For example, I got rid of it. I don't I don't really, I gave to my to friends or to people that they ask me. But yeah, in a house maybe I have maybe one or two, just maybe the one from Formula 3000 and the one from Monaco, Canada, I think, and yeah, I have a trophy that is the gold helmet. It's called. It was a prize giving made by Autosprint. It was a kind
Casco
of
d'Oro.
Casco d'Oro. Correct. Yes, Casco d'Oro. That's it. So, so yeah.
So Lucas, let's start crowdfunding with GP Total fans. We're
For
going
sure.
to. Yeah, definitely. Stefano, I
And
would like to
Stefano,
ask you a question.
about your helmet design.
Yeah,
How
helmet design.
how
So
it how it came?
helmet design. So you have to know that in Formula 3, I was using an helmet with a similar design, but with different color, blue, red, and orange, something
Yeah,
like this. Then
some other colors.
in
Yes.
Formula 3000, they a shop of Casa, they gave me a new helmet. So they just give it as a gift, no, a Bell helmet, and it was white, completely white. So when I went to England to race with Onyx team, the helmet was white, and I start my practice with them, and I start my testing with them with the white helmet. So at a certain moment, the owner of the team said, "Would it be possible for you to use our colors, which are green, a light green?" And so I said, "Yeah, no problem for me. I don't have any particular thing, you know." And so there it comes. So I gave them my helmet, and there was a guy that made a couple of example, on a paper. We could do this, we could do that, we could do the other, and then finally we all choose this one together with the team manager, and it was a common decision among mechanics, myself, and team manager, owner of the team. We decided to use this one, and that was it. And that then it remained like that for from Formula 3000 on. So when I was a kid, I was painting my helmet maybe every month. There was on my go-kart helmet there was something like this of paint. My father was telling me,
Very heavy.
"Stefano, you still painting the helmet?" "Yeah, come on, I changed the design." So it was every race I had a different design. And then when I was going to international race, I had to use the white helmet with the Italian flag. So it was mandatory to use that. So I had a couple of helmets. So, but every time I was designing with something different,
And you ended up with a very simple design.
very
After
simple
all.
design. And I'm thinking now, sometime I'm thinking if I ever go back to race, never know, maybe I would change again the helmet, and I would use a very even more simple helmet with a very simple color, a blue night color with the Italian flag on. That is my helmet for my future in motorsport.
Very
If
elegant.
it will happen.
I would like to ask you a question,
Sure,
Stefano,
sure.
related to Mr. Eccleston. The
Yes.
story you shared with us was pretty funny. And you have met him as the team owner, and also later on you would have him controlling Formula One, let's say.
Yes.
How much do you think that Formula One, as we know, as the Formula One that we learned to love, especially us here, how much do you think that Formula One owes him this? How much do you think that he was an impact in the growing of Formula One worldwide as a business? And let's say the good side and the, let's call it bad side of him stepping up and becoming the main guy that controlled Formula One for so many years.
So yeah, I can answer to you this. And so the first thing that I think is that he did a great job for Formula One, because from an organization of teams, like teams that they were meeting together in certain dates of the year, he made this group of people becoming businessmen, and in particular, they were providing and promoting a show, an incredible show, and that was thanks to him, because I think that thanks to his skills, he could really restore, manage, and let's say really manage the all the teams in finally in one group all together. And a lot of them, they were getting a lot of money out of that business together, because they were getting a lot of money from the televisions and all these things. So it was very good promoting and making the teams working together to be successful in the world. If today Formula One is like today, like it is today, it's thanks to him for sure. On the other hand, I do not like one person at the top. In general, in my idea, I don't like to have one that is controlling everything. And I think that is maybe what he should have understood at a certain moment, and maybe should change his maybe his perspective. And so instead of being, everything should pass through him, everything should go through him, everything that happened, he was the one that say yes or no. And he also made a kind of how can I say, a kind of system that there was person that was working with him, and it was like a chain, a chain of people, and all these people, they were coming from his let's say group from Brabham, most of them from Brabham, and they were, every people was controlling every kind of things, transportation, hotels, things, steward, technical steward. So everything was coming, well, maybe a little bit too much. So that is what in general, that is what I don't like in life, to have someone, a dictator, someone that is controlling. You have to do what I'm saying. You have to do it. That is a little bit too much for me. And this is how I am. So I like a little bit more. So everybody should know that the business is done to improve the image of Formula One, improve the money, improve getting better. But everybody should get better, everybody, and with a certain freedom. Then if you do something wrong for the organization, you should be out. But it's not that I have to control you, or I have to. So that's what I think. But anyway, Ecclestone, for me, he was the one that he was the one that created the business there, really the business.
Stefano, going back to Eurobroom, I'm going to remember some episodes, and if you have any memories to share with us, because we are already 1 hour and a half here, I don't want to push it too much for you, but You did an amazing race in Canada, amazing race. You reached P7
Yes.
that day. It was an amazing. It was quite sad that the car had a problem later because you were on the verge of making a point,
Yes.
scoring a point in
Yes.
Canada. In Silverstone, in that pouring rain, you overtook Alan Prost with McLaren MP44. You overtook Alan Prost in that pouring rain. And in Hungary, you were racing in front of Nelson Piquet with the Lotus. In Jerez, you were in front of Boutsen with the Benetton. I'm saying here lots of moments that were very important for me. If you have any memories of those days that you can share with us, because I repeat, amazing performance with a very poor car, and you did an amazing season, in my opinion, in 1988. And so amazing, in fact, that the team at some point started thinking about replacing Oscar Larrauri and trying to put Christian Dunner in the car, but it was too big to the car. Anyway, you were so fast and you were so nice in that car that Oscar Lahore had a little bit of a hard time with you there because he couldn't beat so fast. So if you have any memories from those races, Canada, Silverstone, Hungaroring, and Jerez, that you
Yeah.
can share with us.
So first thing that I have to say is that Oscar Larrauri was a very good teammate. He was very nice person, very fast too. Um, what I think, it happened to him is that he was very used to race with sports cars, and he was incredibly good. And when he jumped into Formula One, maybe it did not. Yeah, I did not get the car into his mood, into his. But it was, for me, it was an excellent experience to race with him. Then the other thing is that in Canada we had a problem with the gearbox. We always had a problem with the gearbox during the season. We could not manage to put the gearbox on the right way. We always, during the race or during the practice, we always had a problem to stuck in one gear. Maybe fourth, maybe third, maybe. And in Canada, it happened the same thing. So I was fifth or sixth, I was something like that. And coming out from the hairpin, the gearbox stuck in first. I went to the pit. They did something. I restart and then I finish. And that was a very dramatic race for Pavanello because 1 point was meaning a lot of money, and they need the money, and it was complicated. The race after, we went to Detroit in America, US. We went from Canada straight to Detroit, and
You had an accident there. Am I right?
very,
You hurt
very,
your neck.
very big accident. Yes, because to solve the problem of the gearbox, they could not understand what was the real problem. What they did, the gearbox lever stays always in the middle because on the gearbox there are springs that keeps the mechanism on the center, and then from there you pull left or you pull or you push right, and you go into the gear. They took to see if that was probably the case. They took away the springs, so the gear lever was just blank from one side and also the mechanism to put first and second. It was not having anymore some gummy feeling, no, some plastic gummy feeling. It was just free. It was so the gear lever was very good. So in a corner, while during the practice, they made this change and they said, "Stefano, come on, do that. Try and see if we can find the problem, if we can solve the problem." No? And unfortunately, I arrived in a corner from third gear going down to, or from fourth gear going down to second or whatever. It went in first, and I spun and I hit the wall with the back. Car was damaged. Myself in the hospital. 1 night in the hospital completely. And I was lucky. I had no injury. So I came back in the morning on a Sunday. I did the warm-up, even if I could not sleep in the night, but for two reasons. I could not sleep in the night because so I was a little bit, I was good, but I was not perfectly good. And then the second thing is that there was this beautiful nursery, beautiful. But no, guys, my wife.
Your wife doesn't understand English, right?
No, Marcel. My wife was there with me in a room, and she could prove that this lady was just amazing. She was coming to me every half an hour to check the temperature, to check the. So every half an hour I was awake again, but it was so nice to see that.
Am I in heaven?
Did I die?
I was thinking like that, but really. And then at 6 o'clock in the morning, they said, you can go. But at 6 o'clock in the morning. So I couldn't sleep all the night, basically. And then in the morning, I went there, I did the warm-up, because at that time we could use the spare car. And in the race, I was also good. And then, anyway, the performance of our car was good for the middle, let's say, grid, no, but not. And then Ayrton arrived to double me. So I saw him on the mirror. I saw him, and what I did, it was the biggest mistake of my life. I let him pass on the inside of a corner. At the end of the straight, there was a big corner coming back, and I went a little bit wide, and I went over the marble, the small rubber that was. It was like to be on the ice. Just the car, it was in control, and I just hit the wall again, and I stopped. And that was bad. Maybe I was between 10 and 15 position. Anyway, I couldn't. Anyway, I will not finish the race with point or score point in the race. But anyway, it was something that I learned that never goes out, never going out from the correct line, never anymore. So that was an experience. So it was a good, in global, in general, it was a good season. I mean, good season in the sense that with what we had, it was good. It was nice. And for me, it was a nice experience too. But again, it was a very small team and a little bit bigger than a Formula 3000. If you could not compare with the Formula One team, like, even like Brabham, where I went after.
Mm-hmm. Marcio?
I can continue. I just don't. I don't want to talk too much.
We should go to the Tyrrell years now.
To Brabham, I suppose.
Brabham years.
We gotta talk about Brabham, because the team was.
I already told you everything about Brabham, in the sense that half a season when they put in jail Luti, the bad. So, in fact, at the end of the season, he sold the team to another owner, which, to be honest, I never understood who he was. Maybe a Japanese group or something like this. I don't know. But yeah, it was, and also anyway, 89 and 90. 89, the car was very good. In 90, the car was. They did some new parts like gearbox, and it was not good. The car was definitely a step backward in relation to the 89 cars. The 89 cars, the white one, it was amazing. It was nice to drive, easy to set up. We had the advantage of having Pirelli tires. Circuit like Monaco, like Canada, like these places, they were just amazing because they had a lot of traction. So it was good. It was a good season that way. But
How about the Monaco Grand Prix? Maybe if you could share some memories from 1989.
Well, Monaco Grand Prix was it was so I also in that 89 we had to do pre-qualify because there was too many cars, so they only accept 30 cars, so we had to do pre-qualifying, and in pre-qualify we were very good. Car was in very good condition, and we did a fantastic session in free practice too. But in qualify, on the it was on the Friday, yeah. In qualify, so first of all, I had a problem in free practice of Saturday morning free practice. I had a problem in the car, so they sent me out very soon on the qualify with not qualified tire but racing tire. To warm up, to check the car if everything was okay, and so on, and I was good at the beginning. It was very good. I was going very well. Then I touched the guardrail with the rear tire, and the suspension was bent, and I had to stop with that car in qualify. And the time that I did with the racing tire was the time that I qualified with. Because when I took the T car, the spare car, I only had one set of tire left, and the time was even worse than what I did with my car. So I start in 8th position, and really the philosophy there, not the philosophy, but the strategy there was wait, go there, just sleep in a car. And it was one of the most boring race that you can imagine. You know, a boring race?
Verstappen was right.
76 lap like this. So then maybe after 20, 30 lap, one car stop. 8, 7. Okay. Then 10 lap after, another car stop. 6, 5th. And then in front of me, the Cesaris, that it was in front of me, the Cesarit, they had an accident with Nelson Piquet. Touch. I survived. I went outside. I survived. 2 more out. 4th. I said, wow, I'm 4th. How many laps to the end? 30. Oh, I said, wow. And then my teammate was
Martin
Brundle. Stop again. Stop. He stopped also because he had a problem with battery. Wow, I'm 3rd without doing nothing, without doing one single overtake. I said, wow, hey, I'm going to be on the podium. But I was so bored. I was so bored that what I did, imagine, you are in Monte Carlo. You did 75 laps sleeping in a car. Not like this, sleeping and driving. Then I said, I cannot finish the race like this. I must do something. So what I did, the last lap, I did the best lap of the race. I went like hell everywhere. And when I stop on the when I stop on the grid on the 3rd position, the engineer, everybody came to me and they said, "You are fucking crazy. What are you doing? What are you doing? The last lap. Why?" I said, because I was bored all the day, so I had to do some excitement. I had to get some excitement. So I did it. I did it. I did it. Whatever it is, I did it. No, can you imagine if you just touch the wall? I didn't care. I did finish the race like this. And it was the most beautiful lap I did in Monte Carlo because it was fantastic. After a boring race, I did something. And this was...
That's why you have this face on this picture. Bored face.
Yes, because everybody was attacking me. Everybody was saying that I was crazy, and I did not like it. So, but if you look also, Ayrton and Alain Prost's face, we were not very fresh, let me say.
Stefano, how about that little hand on your shoulder?
Yeah, Balestri. Fantastic.
I wouldn't like it.
No. It was an incredible person. You know
I
why?
believe.
Because he
Really?
was, yeah, incredible. Because he was for me, I think he was doing nothing. I don't know what it was his job. The only job that he had, it was coming at the briefing, driver's briefing. He was coming. Gentlemen, I remind you that you need to be correct in the race. And the only thing he was saying of intelligent, really intelligent, was, gentlemen, remember to stay on a black tarmac. So he's not going out of the road, not going out of the track. That was the only sensible and intelligent thing that he was saying during the whole weekend of Formula One. Fantastic. I love that because there was some moment where I was laughing about that. And I'm still laughing now because the only thing, the president of the Formula One and of the FIA, that's the only thing that he says, because honestly, we had briefing. Imagine the briefing in Adelaide after the case of Ayrton and Prost. Imagine, no? There was a chaos. It was a chaos, no? So, and he was saying, gentlemen, stay on the black tarmac. So stay on the, don't go out from the asphalt. That was the only intelligent thing that he was saying. The other thing was a catastrophe. So also managing the issue between Prost and Senna, it was just a nonsense. It was just he couldn't handle anything. It was but he was like this. He was nice. He was a nice person. For me, I mean, it didn't hurt me. So for me, it was okay. It could be another one or whatever. So, but it was nice.
Stefano Chiho had an amazing car in 1990
Yes.
with Jean Alesi. They had lots of good results. You could see it was a good chassis. It was a promising car. And
Yes.
for 1991, you received one of the best engines in the world available. That was the Honda V10. And
Yes.
the team promised too much. It was, of course, a good season. It was, of course, a good season for you. You did not have the results you should have had because, for example, in Imola, you had such an amazing race. You had lots of good moments in the year that could have easily turned into a podium. But
Yes.
nevertheless, you were second in Canada. But what did not work in that combination because it promised so much? And of course, you had that highlight of the P2 in the grid in Monaco, amazing lap. But what did not work as well as it should have been? Were the tires from Pirelli? What was that did not
So
handle so well?
it's very easy to understand. Um, so, so the first thing that I have to tell you is another story, very nice. No? So in Estoril, at the race in Estoril, I signed a contract with Tyrrell in Sintra. We signed the contract for the season. So on Friday, no, maybe on Thursday. And then on Saturday, the manager from Tyrrell came to me and said, "We want you to test the car, the actual car, so the one that was using LSE, on Monday morning here in Estoril. We want to understand a little bit about you. We want you to test the car. So we have 2 days of testing. We want you to test." So they arranged with Brabham this test, and there was a kind of collective test. So everybody was there. So the first day, I start to test with Jean Alesi seat. So again, back, whatever, doesn't matter. Anyway, I start to test the car. And effectively, I was the car was very much different from the Brabham that I was using. A lot of difference. The engine was different. The car was totally different. So, and by the end of the day, when we put the qualified tire, I was also very fast. And I said, "Wow, amazing!" I mean, the car was really very fast, even if the engine was not so powerful versus against a V10 Honda or whatever. No. Yes, and so the funny thing is that in the night when I finished the test, in a paddock behind the paddock, I met Ayrton, and he stopped me. He said, Stefano, he said, so tell me something about this, car, this Tyrrell, because it looks very particular, and how is it? So, with Ayrton, we knew each other since when we were racing in go-kart, so we were exchanging easily opinion, and I said, look, it's really, I mean, it's a particular car. I said, it's very strange. Also to drive, you have to get, you have to change your method of driving, and I said to him, I'm looking forward to put the engine, the Honda engine, the one that you use in a car, because I think it's going to be a really great package. So he looked at me and he said, yeah, maybe. I said, why? Why you say that? He said, Stefano, yeah, it's a very powerful engine, but it's also very heavy. I said, well, what's the problem? He said, you will see. I said, come on. I said, what's wrong? I said, well, you will see. You will see, because it's not just a matter of power. It's also, matter of weight. So I said, okay, I will keep in mind. Thanks, Dai. Come on, let's see what I do. Anyway, they built the car, and I had this in mind, and I said, but how is it the weight of the car? I said, the total weight of the car. Are we good, or are we more heavy? No. They said to me, no. We are good, because the car with the Ford engine was underweight, so we had to put weight. So when we put that, it's heavy, but we can manage it. We are. So then I went for the first time in Estoril to test the car. And I drove the car and I said, wow, what is this? It was completely different from the one with the Ford engine. And there I start to think about what Ayrton was saying to me, about the weight. So I start to say to the engineer, but how heavy is it, this engine, in relation to the Ford? And no, but it's more or less the same weight. So I talked with the Japanese. They didn't want to say anything to me. So finally, I discovered that the engine was something like 25 kilo or nearly 30 kilo heavier than the Ford. So basically, I had a car that it was like a dragster. So it was like, putting here extra weight. The car was, the weight distribution of the car, front and rear axle, it was completely going out of what it was the previous year. So in the previous year, it was like something like 60-40, and there it was like 30-70 or even more. So the car was like this. So you could do anything. You could adjust the front and it was bad on the rear. You could adjust the rear and it was bad on the front. So totally out of weight distribution. And nobody thought about that, so took care. And then when I met Ayrton again, I said, you told me that thing, but he said, that is exactly what I was, telling you, that it doesn't matter if you have, you can have, 50 horsepower more, but if then the car is unbalanced, you cannot get the performance out of it. And it was exactly like that. So the only places or the only circuit where we could manage really to have a performance was Canada, was Monte Carlo, was these kind of places where Anyway, the speed in the corners was not so high to disturb the handling of the car. Imagine that in Monza, when we were getting at the end of the straight and I was braking at the end of the straight, the car was doing this and this. And when I was entering the corner, the rear was just like having a backpack without having any stripe on the front. So bang, bang, like this. So it was very complicated to handle. And we managed a little bit by the end of the season by changing, for example, the front suspension. And also we changed something else. I don't remember exactly. We put something on the back. But front suspension, I think we put a sort of pieces to make it a little bit longer on the rear to change the weight distribution between the front. And also we changed the stiffness of the monocoque because we realized during the season that the monocoque, no reason to understand, the monocoque was twisting much more than what it was twisting the year before. So we realized that in Silverstone, by coincidence, we didn't know by coincidence, we find out that. And we changed that. And by the end of the season, we were more competitive. But it was very stressful season because everybody was saying, hey, you have the car that it was, perfect car. You have the engine that it was the most beautiful and powerful engine on the grid, and there are no result. But there are reasons why there are no result. Maybe I was not so good too. I don't know, but certainly the car was not at the level of how it should be. Unfortunately, that was the reason.
Well, it's out of question that you were very good. That's not in the.
No. But there is one thing, Marcio. A good driver is also the driver that at a certain moment it takes the situation in his hand. Maybe now it's not like this, but at those times, the driver is part of decisions. And when I entered in Tyrrell, we had Postlethwaite as an engineer, we had Mijo as an aerodynamic engineer, so they were people like, they had a lot of experience. So I was getting there and say, okay, I follow what they say. When I start to say, hey, but this doesn't work, how come they will say, maybe it's aerodynamic, and the other one will say, maybe it's the weight, maybe. So, between engineers, they always, is his fault. So when Postlethwaite and Mijo left, because also there is also this, after the third race, Mijo left before the start of the season, and Postlethwaite after the third race he left for Sauber. We had no engineer, let's say project engineer. We only had racing engineer there. So we had no more project engineer. So we did not know what to do. So and I personally forced them to take decision very late in the year when another project engineer came, and I told him, look, this doesn't work, what to do. And I forced Ken Tyrrell to do some changes because he didn't want to do it because he did not want to spend money. So when I say good driver is the one that when he's entering the team is of course getting information, listening what they have to say, but then is also proposing, try to convey, in a way that he's giving the best performance on the track. That is a good driver. On the opposite, on one side or the other, you cannot achieve the good result. I don't know now, but at those times it was like this. Yeah. So that's why I'm saying maybe I was not good enough to handle that
I,
situation.
I understand now what you're saying. And,
Yeah.
do you think, Stefan, I'm going to pass the ball to them, but do you think that this kind of out of the car relationships in some way have affected the development of your career? I mean, because of course you're very good at the wheel, everyone knows that. But were you familiar with the English language back then? And do you think that this participation in the decisions of the team should have been bigger anyway, like you said? Do you think that this affected in somehow the development of your career?
For sure, there was. I wasn't very good with journalists. I was not very good with them, for sure. In a sense that historically, when historically, even when I was racing in go kart, the journalist was their job is to tease and to understand and to enter to understand more in order to work, in order to write down, and we always, even in go-kart, we always, in a team where I was racing in DAP, so we always kept a little bit, on the side. And in Formula One, they wanted to know too many things. Why this? Why that? Why the other? So what I was doing, I was sending my wife. Right, you go talk to them. She was coming from public relation world in Roma, so I said, you go, you talk to them. But I was not, I was not very good on that, and that for sure did not help me. Then, as I explained, every time that I was going in a team, I was going in a team. Also, it happened in Formula 3000, for example, in Onyx. It happened in Jordan. I was entering and try to understand how the team was working, what they could give me. And then when I was in trouble or see that there was no real progress, then I was entering and I was trying to solve. It happened in Formula 3000. There was a moment where we were not getting, very good, and I said, no. Let's wait. Let's do how I want to do, because I'm the driver and I want to have the car like that. It happened in Tyrrell. It happened in Jordan. So, then if you have time to work for more than 1 year in a team and you are working continuously with this team for maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 years, like it happened, for example, for many of the drivers that won world championship, then you increase your relationship with them, and then you get to a certain moment where everybody believes in what you say, everybody is trusting you, everybody, and the same is for me. I trust what the people, because you let them understand what you want. I mean, we are not the same, and we are not driving the car in the same way. So I need certain things. Maybe Ayrton was different things. Prost, Mauricio Gugelmin. A very, very interesting thing with Mauricio Gugelmin at Jordan. Jordan imposed, or let's say the engineer from Jordan imposed us a certain setup of the car. And again, in Estoril, I said, guys, I cannot drive this car. I cannot drive this car. It's impossible to drive. So for me, at least for me. So I forced them to change the car in a way that I wanted to, and I wanted to feel better. I succeed. I was going to be good in the race. I finished 12 or 13, I don't remember. Excuse me. And then what they did a fantastic thing. They said, okay, now you have to prove that what you want in a car, it's an advantage. So you come to Silverstone and we do back-to-back setup and then back-to-back again. So I went to Silverstone and I proved them that with the setup that I wanted, I could drive better. We went to Japan, I finished 7th, and we went to Australia and I finished 6th. And they got 1 point, $2 million means. So, and Mauricio, unfortunately, he could not drive my car. The setup that I was using, for Mauricio, it was impossible to drive. Impossible. So we are different. And if the team does not understand how to support you, you cannot succeed. You cannot get to any good result.
Do you want to ask anything about Jordan for him? Because otherwise, João has a question for him. I could do that for us to finish. Do you have any more question about Jordan, Lucas, Marcel?
Just about the moments you share with Mauricio. How was the team, and why Tyrrell was not an option for 92?
So it was not an option. Tyrrell was not an option for 92 because, to be honest, I was paid by Tyrrell, by Brabham. I did not have sponsor and I did not have my money, so I was always paid. Not a lot, but I was always paid. And at the end of 1991, Ken told me, Stefano, I'm going to lose the sponsor, Braun. I'm going to lose the engine because I don't have money to pay the engine. And I can pay you. If you want to stay with me, you can stay, but I will give you a monthly salary. Means maybe, I don't know. I said, okay, Ken, thank you. It's fine, thank you. And Jordan was proposing me. Jordan car was pretty good in 91. And again, I made this decision. Maybe it was not the most clever decision of my life, but it was okay. But Mauricio, he was, and I think it is still a fantastic, a part of being a good driver, but he was also very nice and very friendly person with me. Stella, his wife, was very friendly with my wife, and they spent a lot of time together. Yeah, I mean, I think he was a great driver, and I think he demonstrated to be a good driver when he went to America, when we went to the United States in IndyCar. I think there he showed his real potentiality. Although I perfectly know that he did not like to race in America. I think it was always, I mean, at least he told me that he was not very used to race at very high speed with these walls around. But he showed his potentiality. In that case, it was also for me, it was much easier to show the potentiality of a driver when you race with the same cars. Everybody has more or less the same cars. So it was a Lola car, whether you have a Chevrolet or maybe a Ford engine, but maybe they are very similar to there. Like in Formula 3000, most of the people had a March car, and there you see the people that has some idea, some skills, some talent. They come out, and Mauricio, I think he did a fantastic job in the United States, really fantastic job. And he was also a very good. I think it is still very good marketing person. So very good relationship with journalists, very good relationship with sponsors. So definitely much better than me in that sense. I was more like, I was more focused on my results in the race instead of thinking also that to get the result you need money or you need connection or you need to be good. So yeah, that's a little bit the story. But one important thing that you need to know before we leave, I don't know if you finish your question or you want to carry on. For me, it's not a problem. The very interesting thing is that I never been passionate about cars. I don't care about cars. For me, the cars have been a tool, like a phone, like a pair of glasses, like a pen. It's a tool that I used to get my achievement. So, what I wanted to achieve. So, since I was racing in go kart, for me, racing with a Birel or a DAP or a PCR or whatever makes no difference. The important thing that it has to be good to let me win, because my challenge was winning. My challenge was by with myself, with the other, and my target was winning, winning, winning. So so whatever car I was using, Formula One, Formula Three, I did not care. Ralt, March, I did not care. The important thing it has to be good to let me win. So even in normal road or normal daily, I don't have any Ferrari, any Lamborghini, any Maserati, any Mercedes, any BMW. I have a very simple Toyota because it takes me from A to B and B to A without any issue. That's the important thing. Then it's like a racket. The car is a tool that I used to achieve my targets. It sounds a little bit strange, but it's like this, guys.
No, it's an
But
interesting point of view. Very, very, very
I know, I
interesting.
know. It sounds very strange because when I say these things to people passionate about motorsport, they say, "Wow!" So I meet also for my job. I meet a lot of people that they are in love with cars. Look at this, Stefano. Look at this. Look at the engine. Listen the sounds. I don't care at all. I just want something that takes me to my.
All right.
but said that, Stefano, I must suppose that you found pleasure in driving. You found when you could do a perfect lap, when you were touching the limits, and Ayrton used to say that it was even when you felt the danger, because in your time you had the danger more than nowadays, much more than nowadays. He said that feeling that he was touching the limit and was getting to that danger zone, it was attractive. It was something that was attractive. It was a privilege to have
Yeah,
that
but
feeling. It
but
must
Marcio,
have been good.
Marcio, let me do an example to you. With Ayrton, when we were living in Monte Carlo, we were going to play tennis together at the tennis club in Monte Carlo. No? He always beat me. I wasn't very good. He always beat me. And every time he was doing the perfect shot, the perfect shot that the balls was going in a corner there. It was, yes, yes. It was for him a satisfaction. It was like it was like a flying lap for him. Whether it was with the racket or whether it was with the car, he was excited to have done that, to have achieved that. So I don't know about Ayrton, but I am like this. So for me, yes, the challenge was also with the car. Be capable to set up the car and to make the car what I want to do. Getting the car to the limit where I want to take the car. Yes, it is a challenge. It is a challenge that is exciting me a lot. But the car could be a Brabham, a Tyrrell, an Alfa Romeo, or a racket, a tennis racket, or a tennis, table tennis, whatever. It's the challenge. Oh, yes, I did it. I got it there. I don't know if you understand this philosophy, but I'm sure that you can.
Sure. Let's go
Yes, for
for
sure.
questions, Marcel. João has a
Yeah,
question.
so yeah, João here in background, he wanted you to hear from you about the DTM experience you had in Interlagos, 1996. You
Yeah.
came to race here in Brazil, and you can take the opportunity to talk about Interlagos as well. You have given your impressions on Jacarepaguá. Maybe you could tell what you thought about São Paulo, about Interlagos, and also that race in DTM in Brazil.
Yes. No. So also Interlagos, it's even now, even today, it's this circuit that goes up and down, and I did not experience the track when it was longer. I only experienced when it's shorter, and but for me, it's how can I say, apart of the fact that the track is in Brazil, already Brazil, it's something really special as a country. What I liked is that it's a big go kart track, and I love that because I can take myself to the limit, and I can enjoy driving there. And with DTM, it was really something enjoyable, amazing, really fantastic. I enjoy because the car was competitive. I finished on the podium. I remember. I don't remember if I was second or third, whatever. Then there was raining, and we had a little bit, but it was nice. And I think I think that DTM also was a very nice experience for me, where I probably grow up also in terms of communication, marketing, because when you work with big manufacturer like Alfa Romeo, Mercedes, Opel, sooner or later you have to be a marketing man. So you cannot do only driver. And there, Alfa Romeo, they were, strongly push me to be more, more, let me say, friendly with people, and it was nice experience. It was nice. It was very good. I had good result also. Um, yeah, it's. I think that yeah, it was not very nice to come out from Formula One, but definitely not. But to get into DTM, to get into touring cars, especially DTM, I would say, it was an extraordinary experience because it's always motor racing. It was always motor racing, but it was more, also more marketing, business, because big manufacturer like Alfa Romeo, Fiat, or Mercedes, they are doing that to promote their products. It's not just a simple car made by Ferrari or how to say, or Williams or McLaren. It's a bigger environment, bigger company. So it was very nice. It was very good, and and the car was nice. 4-wheel drive was easier to drive, so it was good. It was nice experience. Very nice races. Um, for example, I remember Eccleston coming maybe 3-4 times to see how the business was, because I was racing with Alfa Romeo, and we were invited. We were forced to go every night to have a talk with the guest. They were inviting at the races 1,000 people per day in Germany. 1,000 people per day,
Oh,
all in one big tent with food, drinks, and there was a kind of places where drivers were going up with someone that was questioning us, with the team manager, with the director of the team, and I had to learn German to speak with the people. It was something that made me growing up really, and it was a touring car. But in Germany, even now, even today, they are thinking like that. So everything is done for the public. It's a sport. It's so you need to be involved in that, and it's not only the race, but it's everything. Autograph. I spent hours to make autograph for people that were in a queue and waiting with the T-shirt, with the cap, with the photographs, and still today I'm receiving a poster from Germany with picture of the DTM to sign and to send them back. Even today, I mean, even in So yeah, it's completely different from Formula One. Maybe now it's like this also Formula One, but completely different. And the fact that Eccleston was coming to see the race, it was because he was thinking that that was the way to, improve or let's say to make Formula One becoming. Yeah.
And it was a golden age for DTM also. You were in the golden age for Formula One, and later the golden age for DTM. Amazing time for DTM.
Very also there I met drivers that should have been in Formula One for their quality, for their let me say respect, for their um, behavior. There was a few drivers that really astonished me, left me really without word because they were really very good. I mean, Bert Schneider, for example, I met him in go kart and I met him in Formula 3, so we knew each other. But there was some other driver that they should have been in Formula 1 also. They never been there, but they should have been. So, yeah, very nice.
Well, it's good for me, Lucas, Marcel. If you have any, of course, we could go on forever. It's
Yeah.
such a privilege for us. Yeah, I can tell you, I'm a journalist. Lucas is a journalist as well, and you
Yes.
have been very nice to journalists today. And I tell you, on this business. I'm on this business for 25 years, and this certainly is among the top three best interviews I have ever made, and most special for me because. Like I told you in the beginning, you are very special for us, your story, and you gave us so many moments, so many special moments here. I'm gonna take this moment forever with me. It was
Thank
one
you.
highlight of my life here, my career, and I can't thank you. I can't thank you enough. I can't wish you enough. All the best, Stefano, for your life. And I'm gonna send you by email the contact of Roberto too.
Sure,
Anything I
yeah,
can
yeah,
help?
yeah. Why not? Why not? Yeah.
Yes.
But anyway, guys, I'm of course I had to change my attitude in general because when I stopped to race and I had to start to do something else because I was not wealthy to survive all my life. So when I entered in this big company, Bridgestone, I had to change my attitude anyway, because when you are working in a big company, the relationship changes. The importance of having a good relationship with people, not only because they are working in your team, but because they are, colleagues. So also my attitude toward the people change a lot, and also also what I think, what I thought. Today I'm doing very nice things. Next week I'm in Estoril for the launch of the Lamborghini Temerario. We are tire supplier for them. Bridgestone is supplier, and we develop the tire for those cars. So I'm going there to just to represent Bridgestone. And when I'm there, I'm talking with clients, I'm talking with journalists, I'm talking with dealers, I'm talking with a lot of people that it's it's part of my job. So if you have or if you want to talk to me, just communicate, send me an email, and we can find another, couple of hours to talk about something else. Maybe what I'm doing since 23 years in Bridgestone, and which is also very interesting, also to understand and to. So feel free. You are welcome.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Like I said,
Thank you, Stefano.
We will be subtitling this video, and Marcel will be responsible for uploading it. And as soon as we have the date in which it will be released, we will be sending you the message to let you know. So we also ask you to share with your friends and whoever you wanted to, because you are cared and you are important for many people around the world. Maybe you didn't know that, so it's good for you to know that.
No, but no, the fact that a lot of people still writing me, it means that maybe I did something. I don't know what, but maybe I did something, and I appreciate a lot this conversation, because how it came up, how it developed. It's just amazing. You meet someone at the Lamborghini Academia, and this guy said, "I have a friend in Brazil that is a fan and he knows you, and let's send him a message, let's send him a picture," and this is just fantastic.
Yeah.
So it's me that I thank you to you.
Thank you very much.
That's
it, guys.
All the best.
Thank you so much, Stefano. I'm gonna come back to Portuguese now, just to say goodbye to our viewers. But Stefano, thank you so much once again, and God bless you always. É isso, amigos.
Grazie, Stefano.
É isso. Privilégio que nós todos tivemos. Vocês que ficaram até aqui, por favor, ajudem a gente a compartilhar, ajude a espalhar, porque é um material que não é fácil de fazer e que não, francamente, não se encontra em nenhum outro lugar aqui em língua portuguesa. É isso. Esse é o GP Total e o História Esporte. Estamos juntos mais uma vez. Esperamos que tenham outras parcerias como essa no futuro.
Amém.
Prazer estar com vocês aqui e até a próxima.
Valeu.
Muito obrigado.